What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I am back for yet another album review for you guys. This time around, we're going to be talking about a big one as far as classic metal goes, and that is the 25th studio album from one of the pioneers of the new wave of British heavy metal, and that is none other than Saxon and their new album, Carpe Diem. So yeah, Saxon, band that's been around since the mid to late 70s, originally called Son of a Bitch, then they changed to Saxon. First album 1979, and they have been, I would go out on a limb and say, arguably the most consistent metal band of all time, because even during like different phases, whether grunge or glam metal was the flavor of the day, new metal or what have you, they stayed true to their sound and have put out 25 albums. 25! That's a lot of fucking albums for a band that's been around for over 40 years now at this point. Which, I have to commend Saxon for still being around, still pumping out some really cool stuff. How does Carpe Diem stand up to the others? Well, let's take a look. So, we kick things off with the title track, Carpe Diem Seize the Day, after some symphonic soundscapes and marching drums to give the beginning of the song a more epic feel. Then we get a great drum intro and an awesome falsetto from Biff Byford, the man himself, and some awesome riffing. The track definitely feels like something Judas Priest, I'd say, probably would have written for like Firepower or something like that. But the lead towards the end has a nice balance of melodic flair and shred. And even towards the end of the track, afterwards, after this lead and then the chorus, another cool lead showing up. Same going with not the final track, what am I talking about? Track number 2, Age of Steam. Some cool melodic guitar playing going on in the beginning to lead into some more catchy riffs. The bass even kind of comes through the cut of the mix as well. And I love how leading or after the second chorus, the riffs and the drums are working together quite well to build up to the solo. And it's and we get like a nice trade-off, like some tasty harmonic leads and then a single solo that reaches to a screeching close to the song, or it helps reach the song to a close with a screeching solo. I am getting my words mixed up, but hey, what can you do? Track number 3, The Pilgrimage, the longest track of the album at about 6.5 minutes, and yet it's towards the beginning of the album, which is kind of weird. But more of that epic symphonic soundscape going on in the background, and then clean guitars kind of follow, with the electric guitars kind of gradually coming in, and these clean guitars kind of give the song a bit of a somber feel to it. Every other instrument and the vocals follow suit after the electric guitars gradually come in, and even the vocals is kind of giving off more emotion and more of a depressive vibe to it. Like, Biff Byford's really going for it vocally on this track, and the lyrics definitely keep that vibe going as it's telling us a story of struggle and the need of a hero to come in and save the day. The bass playing along with the acoustic guitars leading into the lead was a lovely touch, and then we get a somber lead following afterwards as it sounds like the guitar is literally crying. And then even a second somber lead shows up at the very end of the song as well. Dam Busters, this is a bit of like a classic Nawabum sounding track, like back to the early Saxon days of like the early 80s and such. Like, this is definitely one of the faster tracks of the album. Sorry, I got eyelash stuck. But yeah, it's just classic Saxon, like that late 70s, early 80s Nawabum era. This is what this track kind of sounds like. Quick fire lead in the verse to show off a little bit, and even after the chorus, some twin leads going wild before the main lead comes in, and it gets quite shreddy. And as the final chorus is going on, some more great lead work to bring the song to a close. Remember to Fallen, the middle track at track 5, heavy and chunky riff to get this one off to a more upbeat start. Very memorable chorus as well, as it's all about remembering the fallen military heroes of the past, as this track almost feels like a bit of a celebration of the military heroes of the world. As we enter the bridge, the riffs are building up to another tasty lead with melodic flair and some shred attached, and another cool lead showing up following the final chorus. Supernova, we get heavy and almost thrashy riffs to get us started here, even a quick melodic lead showing up before the vocals kick in. The chorus has a bit of a power metal feel, as it's got some like choir backing vocals singing along with Biff, which is a nice addition. After the second chorus, some somber acoustic guitars show up before a somber lead comes in, and the way that the acoustic and the electric guitars work together helps to drive the lead even more towards a beautiful sounding lead. And then afterwards, I love the dynamic shifts within the riff to lead into the final verse and chorus to end this track. Lady in Grey, another catchy yet heavy riff right off the bat with more of that Judas Priest feel. While that's happening, more of those choir vocals show up, and as heavy as the riffs are on this song, it has a dark vibe to it. After the choruses show up, the bridge carries forth more of that darkness that the song has, as it's building up towards the darkest lead of the album, bar none. And it was like I said, dark, yet it had a little bit of somberness attached, but it still carries on like the lyrical theme of like almost like a vampire story a little bit. All for One, more speedy riffs are just flying off the guitars in a classic new wave of British heavy metal fashion to kick this song off. This track definitely has more of an anthemic feel to it, and Saxon's amazing at creating anthems. Hell, some of their songs are some of the best anthems in metal history, like Denim and Leather and Heavy Metal Thunder, for example. After the first chorus, a sweet, quick-fire lead comes through. The bass line is quite prominent throughout this track. And then another tasty lead following chorus number 2 to carry this anthemic feel further. Black is the Night, the penultimate track. This was a more bluesy, groove-oriented song, and that opening riff, chunky, bluesy, groovy, and heavy. And I love how the riff changes so well throughout the track to bring new life to the riff. After the second chorus, some clean guitars show up to bring in some dark melody and into a bluesy lead, almost like Stevie Ray Vaughan type. Almost a Stevie Ray Vaughan type solo, which I really, really liked. And then the closing track, Living on the Limit, the shortest song of the album, but the fastest. This is like just packed with speed metal fury. These riffs are packed with intensity and viciousness to add more to the aggressive feel of the track. Even the vocals got more gritty in the bridge, leading into a lead that kind of starts off almost like Pink Floyd before it gets into more of that melodic shred that most of the leads had throughout the entire album. So overall, not a bad song on this album. Really, my main complaints would be, it's Andy Sneap doing the production, and he does a really good job. However, there were certain times on some of the tracks where it felt like the bass wasn't quite as prominent as it was on a couple of tracks like Age of Steam and All for One. Like, those tracks, definitely you could hear the bass quite prominently. For me, I didn't really hear much of the bass going on throughout this album, so it's like they may have, on a couple of... Oh, and The Pilgrimage. How could I forget The Pilgrimage? The bass was quite prominent in there, too. So only 3 out of the 10 songs, I felt like the bass had moments of shine, whereas all the other tracks, the bass was barely audible, so I think the bass could have been mixed a little bit better. And then second off, it was a bit formulaic, because it was like pretty much all these songs, for the most part, just followed a similar formula. It's like you start off with some soundscape or some heavy riffs, and then after the first lead, and then you get into the final verse and the final chorus, and then you get a lead afterwards. It was a bit repetitive, but the leads that closed a lot of these songs were great. It's just, I feel like they were doing that a little bit too much. on this album. Like, they could have just left it off with riffs and maybe a couple songs you could have. You could throw in another solo, but it's like about 8 out of 10 of these songs, to my ears, you would end off with a lead, and it just... They kept repeating that trope throughout the album. But that's not really a bad thing. It was just, they were just going along with a formula, and as long as the formula works, it don't matter. But overall, this was a great album. Like, so far, 2022, the genre that's kind of shining the most is classic heavy metal, whether it be from the old bands or new bands trying to keep that old school sound going. I give this a 9 out of 10. This is a fantastic release, and perhaps if you can look past the formulaic nature of a lot of these tracks, I think you'll enjoy it just like I did. And Saxon continuing to prove why they are arguably the most consistent metal band of all time. But what did you guys think of Carpe Diem by Saxon? Let me know in the comments below. As far as what I'll be reviewing tomorrow, not entirely sure what I'm going to review tomorrow. Could be Korn, could be something else. But until then, horns high, and I will see you soon.
I've noticed that once people hit Slayer, they're like, is there something more extreme than Slayer?
Yeah, it's the crossroad, you know. Either you're going like, okay, this is too much, or you're like, I need more. Yeah, so I found Cannibal Corpse on YouTube when I was 12 or 13 and heard the Hammer Smash Face bass solo.
Of course.
Of course, already then I was a bass player, but when I heard that, I was like, okay, that's what I'm gonna do. This is it. And then it just spiraled downwards from there.
And it just keeps growing and growing and growing.
Yeah, it never stops. It devours you.
Yeah, because